saying is, if Pastor Rob McCoy is implicated in this thing, Candace, please provide the evidence. You just running around accusing this person, this person, this person, is just not going to cut it.
As a father, I want to protect my son. And I thought, I got a plan for you, son. He said, Dad, that's not Charlie's plan. And you know what? I'm looking at my son who's 24 years old. Justin's the CFO, chief financial officer, and Mikey's the chief of staff. And I'm watching, the minute Charlie was shot, he called me, says, Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Please call every pastor and pray. I said, okay, son. He has wits about him. He was just directing. He had blood all over him. And
two things I want you to remember here. You may have caught that, but he said, I was watching. And the minute Charlie got shot, he called, and Mikey McCoy says to his dad, Charlie's been shot, pray for him. He says the minute, maybe he's being a little hyperbolic. We're going to find out. I'd certainly like to find out. But he stops himself. He says, I was watching. Watching what exactly? What were you watching? I want to remember that. It's rubbing me the wrong way. And I'm going to tell you why that's rubbing me the wrong way in a little bit. But the bigger thing is that he says Mikey had blood all over him. Except Mikey did not have blood anywhere near him because Mikey was behind the tent when Charlie got shot. And Mikey, in less than a second, does something that I find to be quite strange. He puts his phone to his ear and he begins a conversation. So we're going to watch that clip in its entirety. Mark is going to bring it in. So we decided to slow this clip down, and we're going to watch this clip slow down so you can see that it is exactly 834 milliseconds from the time that you hear the shot. That is how long it takes for Mikey McCoy to put the phone to his ear. Now, why is that precise timing so important? Because there's no dialing. Mikey didn't have time to dial, okay? You can't dial and put your phone to an ear in 0.834 seconds. The next time that you're going to see Mikey McCoy, as we just showed you, is in just under 2.5 seconds on the other side of the tent. He's on a phone call. So we can track Mikey, but let's watch the clip again in milliseconds so you really grasp how quickly this transpires. So when this clip was brought, there we go, we're tracking that. Yeah, when the clip was brought to my attention, I obviously have a file, a big folder of files of every angle, and I decided to track Mikey from every angle available to see, like, maybe we just missed it, and he did at some point put that phone down, dial a number, speed dial, hold down one, I don't know. Maybe we missed it, because that seems automatic, right? 0.834, that seems pretty quick. And no, he doesn't do that. We even have him in front of Charlie's car. When Charlie is brought to the car, the waiting car rather, he is still on the phone. I can show you the clip of that. Take a look at this. Don't worry, we'll slow it down for you. See him in the background with the backpack. It's Mikey McCoy, okay? So what are we to make of that? The only logical conclusion that I can come up with, and many others, because I've pressed, I said, play devil's advocate. I want you to advocate for Mikey McCoy. I want you to play lawyer, and you are representing your client, Mikey McCoy. What was he? How did he do it this quickly? No one could win this game. The only logical conclusion that we come up with was that Mikey was already on a phone call at 12:23 p.m. By 12:23 p.m., he was already on a phone call. So I said, let's go back a little earlier in the footage and see if we can find when he actually maybe dials onto the phone. Maybe we can see him pick up the phone and begin a call before the shot takes off. And then after beginning that call, if we're following this logic, that would mean he puts his phone down until Charlie gets shot. And we were able to find what we think could be that moment. And I can tell you that it is 1 minute and 45 seconds approximately before that shot goes off. And we can watch that here. You can see Mikey's on his phone here. And you're going to see he pulls it up and he starts to cover his ear again. Now, that could be unrelated. Again, we're taking a guess here. That's what made the most sense to us because we couldn't justify it in any other way. And I want to be clear, we're not here to make assumptions, okay? And we wouldn't have to make any assumptions if Turning Point USA could just tell the truth. They could just be open and they could be honest about everything. Okay, I obviously went out to both Mikey McCoy and Andrew Colvett for a statement, asked those two questions. Hey, who were you on the phone with? What's going on here? No response. Weird. Because if that was me and I saw clips going viral and people were drawing conclusions from that clip, thinking that I was already on the phone, thinking that my reaction was weird, I would instantly hit back. I'd say, here's my call log.
Okay, so there you have it, okay? So now Mike McCoy, who happens to be the chief of staff of Turning Point, and this is the accusations, but according to her, she's not making any assumptions. Okay? But literally, she has just accused Mike McCoy. Okay? So let's grant her premise. Everything what Candace Owens is saying is 100% correct. It is true. Does that prove that Mike McCoy is the one who did that to Charlie Kirk? Where is the evidence that to prove that Mike McCoy is the one who did that to Charlie Kirk? If you're telling me that Mike McCoy was on the phone, okay, yeah, he didn't dial, he didn't do all those other things, right? How is that connected to Charlie Kirk? If anything, at least you say, okay, you can see him that he was on the phone, so there is no way that he is the one who pulled the trigger because he's on the phone. So unless you're telling me the phone, him talking on the phone is the same as, pulling the trigger, but given this is Candace Owens, you cannot put past that, okay? So Turning Point has responded to this, okay? And this idea of her demanding that Mike McCoy should communicate to Candace Owens, for what? For what reason? She's not a lawyer. She's not the FBI. She has no authority to be demanding that type of information. If Mike McCoy and those guys want to give Candace the information, it's their prerogative. But if they don't want to, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay? So if that issue is penitent to the evidence, guess what? They are going to call Mike McCoy on the stand. And they're going to ask him, what were you doing? Who were you calling? Who were you speaking to? Okay, you were on the phone. They can pull out the phone logs. They'll be able to see at this hour, at this minute, at this second, you were talking to this particular person, and what was the nature of that particular conversation. Those things, it's not even hard to find. They can be investigated. So as far as him putting his ear, one hand over here, speaking, that place is noise. You were in a crowded place. Everybody's doing all sorts of things that are actually happening at the same time. So if Candace Owens is bringing that as evidence to prove that Mike McCoy had something to do with Charlie Kirk, we need more than that. We absolutely need more than that, okay? So if anything, she needs to produce like, okay, that phone call was from Mike McCoy to Tyra Robinson. You see what I'm saying? And that can be traced, that can be verified. Until she produces that, she has nothing. But nevertheless, Turning Point issued a response because this thing is going viral. So remember, the judge issued a gag order. All the people who were there at the event are potential witnesses, so they are not supposed to say anything as it relates to this situation, as it relates to the case. So I don't see why he will be communicating to Candace. And even if he wanted to, with everything else that's going on, would you communicate to Candace Owens? I know I wouldn't. So let's see what Turning Point response is to the situation with Mike McCoy, okay? Take a listen. Here we go, guys.
Suggestion online that Mikey, Charlie's chief of staff, one of the most sincere people you'd ever meet, brilliant, Christian, kind, everyone who's he ever met in his entire life, couldn't hurt a fly, was part of a conspiracy to murder Charlie. That's what's going on.
Yeah. It's vile. It's utterly vile.
Who would do this? Like, what type of individual? Just to create content, do we think, or is there some? What's the ulterior?
I don't know. I think a lot of this mindset just sort of fuels itself. It's sort of addictive in the same way a lot of social media stuff is addictive, or in the way like honestly something like pornography is addictive or something. Like they get really they almost get a high off of like the idea of like that they're doing something that's daring or out there.
Yeah, and I want to make one other point though, and this is actually to your point. You saw Mikey do heroic things that day. I saw Mikey do heroic things. I was not on site, but I immediately flew to Utah. We got a plane. I mean, it's not something that I'm used to, but it was like my wife went with me. We went straight over. I knew I needed to be with Erica and the team immediately, just because, I just knew. But that moment when I got the news, I was so shell-shocked. I was not even there, but I was immediately traumatized. My brain fries like an egg. I can't see straight. I can't think straight. All I knew is that, like, what's happening? My wife came in. She, like, hugged me. We started crying together. And I can't even remember those moments very clearly. I wasn't even there. Mikey was two steps away.
About that.
And I asked him, I was like, do you even remember the moments after? He's like, I can't even really remember. I know I called Erica. I know I called my wife. I know I called my dad. I can't even really remember the steps I took. I can't. But here's the last thing I want to make a point of. And because Charlie had given me similar instructions along the years, said if anything ever happens to me, you call Erica.
Yeah, that's the other
he
thing.
drilled that into Mikey's brain so that when this moment of trauma happened, that he turned around and he knew how to do it. And by the way, last thing, because this is part of the video allegations here, is that they think they're alleging that he was on the phone immediately. He was not. He was taking social videos, which he would send to our group chat, which we would then put on Charlie's social while the event was happening, so you could see like the crowd come in or his interactions. And we were only 2 questions into this event, so he was still getting it out to all the chats he needed to do, which he did at every event. He turns around, and it was so blaringly loud, I'm told. You would know this better than I, but this is what I'm told. It was so blaringly loud, and he was so shell-shocked. He put his fingers in his ear, but his phone was still in his hand. He walks away. And he's
not even walk. I want to, because people are talking about that. The way it was is we had a cordoned off had with grates, so you had controlled access. All the people when this happened.
And also, I don't know why Candace Owens is making this like a big deal. We know right now everybody is always on their phone. Everybody is always on their phone. How did we know that Charlie Kirk was shot? Like you could actually see the actual video, him bleeding out and everything else. Why? Because people were on their phone. Everybody's always on their phone. So it's not a strange thing that somebody was on their phone. And according to this information, he was, responsible for doing socials and everything. It's not out of the norm that he was on the phone. I don't find that to be odd. But once again, Candace Owens find that to be odd. And yet everybody else is on the phone. Where is the video about the person who actually filmed the actual Charlie Kirk? And after all, everything was a video. They were live streaming this thing. I don't understand why she's making this, but for some reason, this, the McCoy, she's been saying, because Mike McCoy, his dad is Rob McCoy. So both of them do work for Turning Point USA. So this stuff does not sit well with Candace Owens because she looks like these people, now Charlie's gone, they're still going to have jobs with Turning Point USA. It's like the people she doesn't like are the ones who are benefiting for Turning Point USA. She wants to be the one. That's how I see it, to be quite honest. She needs to produce enough evidence so that, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we don't have to carry water for Rob McCoy or Mike McCoy. If they had something to do with this issue, she needs to bring it out. We'll be happy out here and scrutinize it. We'll be happy to scrutinize it, for sure. But as it is right now, just like, this is not enough evidence, Candace Owens. I'm sorry.
Happens, they all get the idea we should leave before we are shot. And so there's a little narrow gap that I think people, it's not really walking, it's that everyone has to slow up to get through this little narrow choke point to get out of the area. And
anyways, well, the point is he walks briskly. I don't even care if he's walking, running, whatever, because again, the most traumatic thing you could imagine had just happened to him. My brain fried. I cannot imagine what was going through your guys' head being on the scene and seeing it.
Okay, so that was, Turning Point issued, that was their response from Mike McCoy. Now that was Andrew Covert who was speaking. He's a spokesperson for Turning Point USA. And Mike McCoy was the chief of staff to Charlie Kirk. And Candace Owens is accusing both of them, I guess father and son. Who knows? But this lady, I'm sorry, she's losing it.